Pat McFadden, welcome. There you go. Even the Tories think you've got it in the bag. Then they're warning of a supermajority, sort of assuming you'll get a majority. So it's all over, isn't it?
No, it's not all over. I think lots of voters have still got to make up their mind. I've been reflecting on the Conservative messages about this. I think it was about exactly 2 months ago today when I stood, or sat rather, in this studio, and people were quoting Rishi Sunak to me after the local election, saying the real problem is Labour can't get a majority. It's going to be a coalition of chaos. Labour can't get a majority. It's going to be very unstable. Fast forward 2 months, and now they're trying to say something else about... I mean, how many Labour MPs do the Conservatives think we're allowed to have? They don't actually get to dictate the outcome. It's in the hands of the voters.
Yeah.
And our message throughout the campaign is it's time to turn the page on the Conservative years, vote for change with Labour, but change will only come if people vote for it. So I think it's disrespectful to the electorate to call the outcome of an election before people have gone to the polls. The polls are tomorrow. It's in the voters' hands, and that's the right way it should be in a democracy.
Is it respectful to the electorate to not tell them exactly what you're going to do? If you'll let me paraphrase only fools and horses, no income tax, no VAT, no national insurance, but what are the guarantees? What else are you going to do with all the other taxes?
Well, we've set out our tax position throughout the election. We did talk about income tax and national insurance and VAT, and we also said something else too, which is nothing in our manifesto requires us to raise taxes further. And it's important to consider that manifesto because we were under pressure to promise all sorts. I mean, I've done lots of interviews during this election where they say there's this problem and that problem and the other problem, and you're not offering enough change. Why aren't you promising to fix all that? And we put together a responsible manifesto precisely because we know the economic inheritance that we're going to get from the Conservatives. And on tax, I do have to point out, they have put tax up to its highest level in 70 years.
But as Mel Stride said, the Institute of Fiscal Studies suggests that it's going to go even higher under Labour.
Well, the Institute of Fiscal Studies, they take a snapshot of the now. What they don't do is talk about the overall performance of the economy. And the heart of our manifesto
is growth.
It's changing the overall
performance. It's growth, right? So how are you going to make growth happen? Because, again, you speak to people who voted for Brexit, and they're worried that you're going to connive to do some deal with the EU to open up the market once more, but again, bring things back like freedom of movement and roll back on the Brexit deal.
We're not going to rerun the Brexit argument.
But might you change the terms?
Well, I think there's improvements we can make in that deal. There's an awful lot of trade barriers facing businesses right now. They're very costly. Remember, Brexit promised to reduce bureaucracy. I don't know if you've had any business people on in recent weeks
we hear from them a lot.
Asked them if Brexit has reduced their bureaucracy or the particular deal that Boris Johnson struck. But we've also been clear we're not going to rerun the Brexit argument. The leadership task for whoever wins the election tomorrow is to make the best future for the UK outside the EU.
Pat, let me come back to the tax question because, as I say, promises on those three main taxes, but not about others. Is fiscal drag, as in leaving income tax bands where they are while wages are going up, is that fair?
Well, that's set into the system at the moment.
It is. Is it fair?
Well, what we have to do, if you've been out of power for 14 years, what you have to do is take the situation that you inherit. And that's one of the features of the situation that we'll inherit.
You could change it.
And we'll go on from there. Well, you know, you could change a lot of things, but we want to be responsible. We're conscious of the tax burden that people already have. And that's why we've put an emphasis on growth.
Sure. Is it fair, though? Is fiscal drag fair on people? They earn a bit more money, the taxes stay where they are, they're paying more tax, and to give you and the Exchequer something like 30 billion by the end of the decade. Is that fair?
Well, it's what the Tories decided.
So we have to change it. If you're in government tomorrow, you could change it.
We take a different view about these tax measures from the Tories. We believe if there's a tax cut, it has to be affordable and sustainable. Tories have promised tax cut after tax cut after tax cut in this election with no idea how to pay for it. And that's what Liz Truss did 2 years ago. And what happened was people didn't get the tax cuts but they got the mortgage rises arising from the economic instability of the irresponsible promises. We're not going to do that. And that's why when it comes to, you say you could change this tax, you could change that. We would only ever do that if it was economically sustainable and responsible.
The final question on tax, what about inheritance tax? People get taxed their whole lives, and then if they've worked hard and leaving something to the next generation, they get taxed on that as well. The Conservatives talked about abolishing that outright. Do you think that's fair to levy inheritance tax on people?
Well, they've had 14 years and inheritance tax has been in place.
Yeah.
How credible is it to rock up after 14 years in power and say, we're just going to abolish this tax, as well as all the other ones that they've announced?
But how credible is it to rock up and say, well, we've inherited this situation, we're not going to change it if you vote for us?
Because you look at the economic situation that you inherit and you have to say, is it affordable for us to just promise to abolish inheritance tax? The Tories will say, yeah, that's affordable, and all the other ones, we know where that movie ends.
It's less than 1% of what the Exchequer gets overall.
People are still paying the price in their increased mortgages for the last time the Tories lost the plot on unaffordable tax commitments. That's not a mistake that we're going to repeat. And I frankly think the choice at the election tomorrow is about responsibility and someone taking some responsibility. And that's why we've conducted the campaign that we've conducted and written the manifesto that we wrote.
You have been responsible for the national campaign the whole time. I know you've been locked away doing that as well. Let's have a chat about Scotland, because it's not where your constituency is, but you are a proud Scotsman. And John Swinney has been out and about there. The SNP trying to maintain some momentum. And in Scotland, the fight between you and them, well, that's a big one.
It is, and we are hopeful in Scotland. We've been in a bad place electorally in Scotland for a long time. We've got offering change there too.
And you've known John Swinney a long time. You were at university together?
We were at university
Teenagers?
together.
Were you mates?
We got on pretty well. We were, on a personal level, I like John. I mean, I haven't had contact with him in recent years, but yes, we were at university together a long, long time ago when we both had more hair.
Yeah, fair point. I couldn't possibly comment, of course. But the final question from me, Pat McFadden, and I asked it to Mel Stride earlier on, is yesterday the Welsh Government promised to bring in legislation outlawing politicians lying. Same question to you. Ever told a lie?
Oh, I mean, you try not to in life. I can't think of one I would raise. What I would say is, doing these interviews, you get asked a lot of things. Sometimes you can get an answer wrong, and it's not because you're lying. It's because you do 4 or 5 on the bounce, and you might not always give the best answer. But
I think you wished England luck in the Euros. I mean, did you mean that?
Well, they got luck.
Yeah. OK, so
they
it's down
got
to
luck.
you. OK.
You know, I think the mood of the country is much improved with a successful England team, and you know, let's see what happens in the next match.
I'm not even sure that's true, to be honest with you. Pat McFadden, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Indeed.